You're trying to give the young people something that will help them, yet you don't know exactly what it ought to be.
Welcome to the Teach Thought Podcast. Our mission is to rethink what's possible teaching and learning in a modern context. Join your classroom to the Teach Thought movement and be a part of the change.
Hi, this is Drew Perkins, Director of Professional Development here with Teach Thought. Thanks for joining us on the Teach Thought podcast once again. If you're interested in our professional development services, I'd love to have you go on over to our website at teachthought.com/PD and check out our services menu. We have lots of workshops in areas like PBL and inquiry, creativity, differentiation, lots of different things, and we'd love to work with you and grow together. In today's podcast, I have Alan Carrington, all the way from Adelaide, South Australia, and he is the inventor of the very popular Padagogy Wheel, and as a matter of fact, is also available as one of our workshop specialists. So if you're interested in having Alan Carrington come to your school, please let us know. We talked about, of course, the Padagogy Wheel itself, as well as the evolution of it, but more importantly, how to use it. And that's starting from the inside, going out, and how to use that Padagogy Wheel to really get at better pedagogy and get the most leverage out of the apps and the ed tech that you're using in your classroom. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Alan Carrington. I'd like to get you to tell everybody what you do. We're going to talk about the Padagogy Wheel for sure, but who are you and what do you do?
Drew, before I answer that question, when the Americans are listening to Australians, there's only one word they listen for. And if I don't say it up the front, nobody's going to hear what I say. So I'm going to say it right here and now. G'day, Drew.
G'day.
How you do?
All right.
Yeah, don't worry. I've been to America many, many times, and there's not many Americans that are even game enough to handle it. So my name's Alan Carrington. As you said, I'm officially, at this point in my life, retired. If you had a camera on me, it would be quote marks, because for the last 3 years I've been literally retired. But before that, I worked for the University of Adelaide down here. I'm a learning designer by profession. I spent about 15 years in the game of coming alongside academics to help them integrate technology into their teaching. And then I've retired, but at the time I retired, things started to happen on a personal level. So I'm busier now and more productive now and reaching more people than I could ever have done working for a university.
All right. So what is learning designer? I love that term. And a lot of times when we think about teaching and educators and renaming and sort of the semantics of it, say learning teachers as architects, teachers as designers, and learning designer. But I'm guessing learning designer in Australia means something specific?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I started way back, 10 years, goodness, way back. Actually, it's 15 years now. The term was instructional design.
Okay.
And Americans use instructional design a lot more than the Australians would. Mm-hmm. But but as the shall we say the pedagogy with an E begin to evolve and develop in the 21st century, if I may put it that way, there was a shift, and the shift, of course, from content centric to activity centric, from teacher-centric to student-centric learning, and that I've got a whole stuff on that. That's another podcast if you're ever interested.
Right.
But the truth is, the role of the learning designer is helping the teacher move through a continuum of shift. Okay, where they're shifting from teacher-centric across to learning-centric and back again, to student-centric and back again. Mm-hmm. Got quite a bit of stuff on that, but that's the thing. And so as it shifted across to the more student, the instructional designer is really more interested in the learning than they are in the instruction. Well, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. They're equal involved. So that's what a learning designer. There's a in big universities in America, sometimes there's 3 functions to good teaching. There's your content expert, who's a subject matter expert. Mm-hmm. There is your a learning designer or instructional designer who's interested in the pedagogy, and then there is the educational technologist. Now, that's a function thing, and in most cases, the teacher's expected to be all three.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, Drew, I don't know what your opinion is, but I believe that the day of the single person teacher by function is finished. They must see themselves as a member of a team. And that's why personal learning networks have gone ballistic. Because, so what I did was that I got a master's degree in interactive multimedia, which fed my nerd side and gave me the educational technology base I wanted. And then I did a master's of education, and that fed the pedagogy academic side. And so those two things are what I did at the University of Adelaide. And most Australian universities have them in one department or one centre. And more often than not, their learning designers and their instructional technologists are the same people.
Interesting. I think probably maybe the most parallel thing there you're talking about here in the States would be an instructional coach, is kind of what we call that person who sort of guides and helps and supports a teacher. Not that a teacher shouldn't be strong in pedagogy, because certainly we want them to be, and as well in technology integration, that kind of thing. But that coach, and when I think about what I do as a professional development person, when I go to a school, when I'm working with teachers in small groups or individually, kind of doing that, like really guiding with questions and getting them to think about, what about this, thinking through this lens, and we call that more coaching here. Perhaps that's just a different name or wording.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff, Drew. Tell me, how many schools in the United States would have that sort of function in the location? Do they have coaches working at a school?
Coaches, I think it's becoming much more prevalent. I couldn't tell you the percentage, but I'm guessing probably over 50% you'd see somebody with an official title of an instructional coach. Now, are those people all doing what we would really talk about, what we would really consider as instructional coaching or learning design, or whatever what you're saying? That's another question. That's you can have the title, but there's a real art to it. There's a real
Yes.
It's that inquiry and that questioning that really gets people to think differently.
Yep.
And that's the coaching part.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I've not stopped and thought about that the way you've talked about it before, but yeah, I think that's a career path waiting to happen. Waiting to be developed.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Padagogy Wheel. On Teach Thought, we published some time ago your volume version 3, and you have a new version 4.
Yes, I do.
But so kind of, I was looking at your website and looking at the different versions, and it's fascinating to see the growth and the different things you've added and things surrounding it. And I love the PDF version, and we'll share a link to that as well as just the picture. But you can click on this, and it takes you there. It's very fully interactive. But tell us the sort of the process and the journey. How did the Padagogy Wheel come to fruition?
This is one of my favorite professional subjects, of course.
Right.
So I'll try to keep it concise and brief. As a learning designer, as I sit down with academics and lecturers in the higher ed space, and it's the same in the K-12 space, you sit down with the teachers, and they are... We used to have a love-hate relationship at Adelaide with our ITS, our information systems people, our information technology systems, actually, people, because, the teacher sits there is focused on the pedagogy, focused on the application, and constantly they would be confronted with, you can't do that because we don't support it. And for a long time, I was thinking, the technology is driving the pedagogy. And it was out of that type of thinking where a teacher would say, and then, of course, Apple come along and the app revolution started to happen. And so there was an independence given to the teachers. And the good news is that independence was given to the teachers, and the bad news was independence was given to the teachers at the same time, right? Because a lot of them become looked for apps being an end in themselves,
Right.
and so the challenge of support was replaced by the coolness of the app, if I may put it that way.
Right.
And so then I thought to myself, how do we succinctly put before the face of the teacher at the coalface the reminders to please think pedagogy and then find the tools to meet the need? Mm-hmm. And I was invited across by Apple, actually, as part of my ADE, Apple Distinguished Educator thing, to Cork Island in 2012. And as a result, I organised some other teaching things. I ended up doing 8 seminars, 5 universities, in 3 countries. And what everybody wanted me to talk about was iPads. And so I upgraded my resources for my seminar, and I called the seminars Padagogy 101 and Padagogy 201. And they were very successful, but nothing as successful as when I put up on the board a copy of Bloom's taxonomy. And Bloom's being such an architectural foundation of modern teaching, I was pretty well the first person to stop and think about how to put apps around the outside of the wheel in categories. Now, other people have worked with that, and on the poster there's On the Shoulders of Giants, which is my recognition of the work done by so many great people. But I put the apps out there, around 62 of them, and I got swamped at the end of each seminar with teachers asking me, could they use it?
Right.
And I went home, said to my wife, what's going on? So I started to think it through, work it through, and develop it. And that was the birth of the Padagogy Wheel. It was basically Bloom's taxonomy with the apps categorized by cognitive domains around the outside. I then started, as I thought about it and as I interacted with my what is now referred to personal learning network, and I've got lots of buddies in all sorts of countries, thank goodness. One of my mates in the States said to me, what about motivation? Where does that fit? Someone else said, we really should look at what the graduate, and so there was things added, hence the versions. Mm-hmm. So to cut a long story short, one of the big centerpiece, the graduate attributes, is really significant. Excuse me. And then the motivation circle. And then we sort of said to ourselves, well, now we've chosen good apps. Are we actually using them strategically? And of course, you can't get any better than the SAMR model. So we tacked that one on the outside. And this thing evolved into, I think I'm safe in saying, a learning model, certainly a very powerful infographic. And so that's where we got to. And version 4, actually it's 4.1, 4 become significant because of a website called Appendicitis.com, which was an Apple Distinguished Educator group ADE thing. And it's now gone off the air because the project's finished. But ADE gave me the resources, the Appendicitis site gave me the resources to put 122 apps on there. And that got a big wow. But it's not about the apps. It's not about the apps. It's all about the process of how do you approach sound teaching.
Right. It's funny. What you said to start off there reminded me last night. I think I tweeted out last night or the night before. The importance of thinking pedagogy first and purpose first. What are you really trying to accomplish? And then let's see if we can find a tech tool that we have available that we could do that with. And there was I was reading Fast Company magazine, and the very back page of Fast Company, there's a piece by a comedian who does, I guess he's a producer for the Daily Show. I don't know if you're familiar with that here in the States. The Daily Show, very popular show on Comedy Central. And but anyways, he said he had a piece about technology. It wasn't educational technology, but it was about technology, and he actually made the joke, and I thought it was really quite clever. Because he said, if you take the word technology and substitute out pickles, you could really just have fun with that. Like, how many teachers would say, if we just had more technology, the students would be more engaged. And you say, well, if we just had more pickles, the students would be really a lot more engaged. Like it's not about the technology. Technology in itself does not have inherent good. It's about what you're trying to accomplish with that.
I have a slide and a term I use like that, and you're more than welcome to have a look at it. I'm not sure, and it's in all my presentation software, presentation slides in my blog, but I call it appendicitis, appendicitis, and it's a disease that teachers get, okay, and because they see apps as an end in themselves. And so it's got a BC comic in it, and it says, what are the symptoms of having appendicitis, and that is that they use the word cool a lot. Part of their daily routine is to check out what apps are trending, and it's like a disease. Yeah, it takes over, and I don't blame teachers for doing this. They haven't got time to go looking for better apps. But if they're constantly, that's why I talk about grids or attitudes or gears. The gears of the interconnectivity. That's on 4.1, which has just come out only about 3 weeks ago. But because we had to pull it back from Appendicitis because it's gone off the air, and we've now linked it all back to every app on that wheel is linked to its iTunes preview page, which will open in the iTunes of your use, which has been huge on international. But that we did that, and it's so important to put the pedagogy first.
Yeah. So, just as a side question, I would imagine that you must have ed tech companies beating down your door to get on this pedagogy wheel.
I love the way you think, Drew, and I wish it was true. I've had people say, that's version 5, my dream for version 5.
That's your real retirement.
But there's an app itself waiting to happen. There's a terrific. The app should be and I want to come back to that graduate attributes piece in the middle, if I can get time. But the truth is, if you sort of followed the methodology of the wheel, and you got to the point of now you've thought about motivation, you've thought about what attributes you should be using and integrating in your course, and now you're starting to choose outcomes, then you should start, the wheel should be almost blank from action verbs. And if you could choose the action verb, then that populates the activity from a database, and then from the choosing the activities, it populates the apps.
Right.
So instead of having 122, which is all I could fit, very, very practical, all I could fit, then we pull in something from a database of thousands of apps, and suddenly the teacher begins to see relevant activities, relevant apps, and then relevant examples from a database that says these are how teachers have used this app to achieve these sort of create cognitive domains. Are you tracking me with on that?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating, because what you're really, as I'm looking at the 4.1, and you've got Daniel Pink, and as I just published a blog piece on our project-based learning model, and one of the sort of 6 levers, I call them levers, as we think about how do we really leverage and elevate and increase, amplify thinking and learning. One of those is autonomy. Some people might call it voice and choice. One of them is craftsmanship, and so the mastery is certainly there.
Yeah.
And purpose, which is, to me, when I'm working with teachers on project-based learning or really anything, it's so important to establish a purpose. And in a project-based learning setting, you say, what's your product, what's your purpose, and who's your audience? Like, what are you making or creating, and why are you doing it, and for whom? And you're not always, it doesn't always that you have to do it in project-based learning, because you can still have to be clear about your purpose. But I love how, as you're looking at this from the center, you're saying, all right, what is it, like you said, if it were blank going out, you say, what am I trying to accomplish? What's my purpose here? Which then leads you to that action verb, which then leads you to your activity. What is it that you're really doing, which is kind of your product in a way, in a lot of cases here, depending on the, one of them is create here. So obviously you've got products there, and then you get to what's the tool? What are the tools? And some of them might be apps. Some of them might be pen and paper.
It could be chalk. Could be chalk.
Yeah, right. Writing on the cave wall, whatever. So it's the thinking that we're after, and it really, the way that you explained it there, I love, because it really does sort of outline, I think, that process.
Okay, one of the big things in my thinking right now, and it always has been, is graduate attributes and capabilities. Now, I don't know how big they are in America, but in Australia, many, 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 many universities are developing their university or their institutional graduate attributes. Right. And they publish them on the websites, and they get the best minds in the organisation to sit down and brainstorm and come up with and try to come up with this cool stuff that defines the experience. Good heavens, I never expected, Drew, that I would hear that we have, this was about 10 years ago, maybe 10 years, 8 years ago, we appointed, meaning the University of Adelaide, appointed a Pro-Vice-Chancellor student experience. Now, their job was to define why you should be at the University of Adelaide. Okay? Why not go down the road to the University of South Australia? Okay? And so that graduate attribute thing, and I began to think about that, and it all started or formulated in my head one day when a guy called Jeff Scott from the University of Western Sydney, senior academic, but I'm not sure if he was a vice-chancellor or a pro-vice-chancellor or something. But anyway, he was a very experienced dude. He's since retired too. But Jeff was giving a presentation at the University of Adelaide, and he put up on the wall the 15 employable capabilities that the bosses, the corporate leaders in Sydney wanted in the graduates from the university. This was a result, I believe, of 25 years research. Mm-hmm. Okay, these 15 things he put up on the slide, and he's talking away about sustainable education. And I'm looking at these things, and I put my hand up. It's true. I put my hand up, and I said, "Excuse me, Jeff." I said, 95% of what you've got there are matters of the heart. They're not matters of the head. And he burst out laughing, and so did everybody else in the room. And he said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "They're almost religious." And then he joked more and said, "You know the sad part? Most of the universities aren't addressing them." Now, if you go looking for these in my slides, there's things like energy, passion, enthusiasm, transparency, honesty, thinking laterally, creativity, true to one's values, what we badly call soft skills, right? And these are the things that defines excellence versus the just got it dude, just the average dude, right? And so what we've got to try to do is help the students strive for excellence. And that's the core of the wheel. And I actually put together, I joined them up with, and it's all in the references, I joined it up with the characteristics of a 21st century learner. And I come up with 25 of these things. And I said, now look, one of the things I want to do, and I want teachers to think about, is why don't you define transformative learning. Every teacher I've ever spoken to around the world wants to be a transformative teacher, but nobody will define it for me. I'm exaggerating. It's hard to define. And so what does transformative look like? And so what does a graduate look like? That's the person transformed at the end. And so I have an exercise or a methodology that I'm suggesting teachers use is sit down with these 25 graduate attributes, and 15 of these 25 I know will get you the job you want, your dream job, right? So you take these 25 attributes and pick the top 5 or 10, I don't care what they are, and define what a graduate looks like from your program. Now, it doesn't have to be a university or a school or something. Define what they look like as a result of doing Science 201. And try to come up with this definition of a graduate and incorporate these attributes. Then you say, okay, guys, you show it to your students. And the students say, okay, fellas, do you want to look at that and change it? Do you agree with that? And you do this reaching consensus, which a wiki, of course, is ideal for that. Then you come up with a definition of a graduate that everybody agrees to. And then you say to the student, and I'll call you the student for the exercise, Drew, what if I tell you what, as it's your teacher for the next 12 weeks, 24 weeks, year, I commit myself 24/7 to helping you get to look like that on one condition. And the student says, what's that? And the condition is that you commit yourself 24/7 and you've got yourself a learning contract towards the concept of excellence. Mm-hmm. And you can keep the student coming back to that and saying, hey, guys, you want to get there? Yeah, well, we got to do some more work in this area.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that I have done for years in a workshop is, and I was actually just recorded a podcast with a woman named Amy Spinelli from Inquiry Partners here in the States, and she and I were talking about the sort of the outcomes that schools are after, test scores and all those things, but what teachers and most reasonable people would say, who are not policymakers, will say that their ideal graduate is has those 4 C's, has those 21st century skills, those soft skills, all of those things, and that's so important for staff to understand, for a school to understand, for a group that you're working with, because again, it gets at your purpose, right? I mean, this is what we're trying to create, and so what do we need to know and do in order to accomplish that? And when we talk about one of the things we talk about here is an ideal school framework at Teach Thought, and so working with schools and say, all right, what are the characteristics and traits of your ideal school, and let's get that from your community stakeholders, and including
same thing.
Yeah, and now we can build out a plan and say, so we need to help you with learning in this area, and you need to do this, and then you can clearly get if you go back to your pedagogy wheel, you can get your action verbs, your activities, and your tools, whether they're apps or whatever, absolutely.
And the University of Greenwich in London has actually been working on graduate attributes and employable capabilities for about 20 years. Mm-hmm. And they're so sophisticated, they've got software that helps the lecturers ensure that their courses are in fact supporting the graduate attributes and in fact using them. Now, there is a way for software to be developed. I'm not, don't ask me how they do it, but I do know they do it because I've been there. But it's so critical that we get the students coming out. If you roll back everything for every reason for why someone wants to be educated, if you roll it all back and you keep digging deeper, you'll come down to one fundamental thing. It doesn't matter about your educational worldview. It doesn't matter about your religion. It doesn't matter about your cultural background. It comes down to one thing. I want to make a difference.
Right.
And if we can start to show students how they can make a difference, and part of the reason they make a difference, and how do people recognize that these guys can make a difference, it all comes down to these attributes and capabilities. It does.
It's interesting. I did a podcast published with a guy from the States here. His name is Justin Tart. He's pretty popular on Twitter, and I liked what he said. He said moving students from consumption to creation, which is pretty typical. Yes. I hear that, but then he said, and let's take a next step and go from creation to contribution, which I think is a really nice piece. And I think of schools and authentic work. How can we get students and schools to add value to the community and to the world, not just live inside this sort of academic bubble and doing work for whatever, playing school's sake.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you about the international, or the first language project, as I've called it, about this thing. Matt Harris, who you've already podcast.
Yep.
Matt, I didn't know who this guy was, to be honest, and I got a tweet. I tracked the word pedagogy, and it's no longer do I get jokes about the word. It's not as effective made-up word as a wiki is, but people are quite happy to call it pedagogy. Mm-hmm. And another issue is that I don't want it just to do an Apple version. I want an Android and Microsoft version, or Google. That's another whole story. If anybody's listening that is a Google educator and is prepared to help me with 122 apps from Google, give me a yell.
And that notification is probably one of them. Your phone just dinged. They heard it.
I thought I could turn that off, but I didn't.
No, that's all right.
Here's the story, right? Here's the story. Matt put out this tweet, and the tweet said, "The Padagogy Wheel should be in every classroom of the world."
Right.
Okay, and I thought, is he serious? I contacted him, found out who he was, the chair of ISTE. Right? I thought, there's a significant educational leader that kind of likes this idea, and he's given me a wonderful endorsement about it. But that comment set me on a pathway, because I've travelled extensively. I've lived in the States for 9 years. I suffered in Hawaii, but that's another story. I started to think about this, and I put out a tweet, and I said to the teachers out there around the world, who's interested in translating this thing into their first language, as I refer to it, their language of the heart. Okay? And I got 19 people say yes. And so I am managing the translation of the Padagogy Wheel now into 19 languages.
Right.
And I have kept pushing, because I got to get more out. Admittedly, we've got 6 languages already out, and there's 6 more I've got the scripts for waiting, and so that actually happens. But this touched on a nerve and I've got this hypothesis, which I throw it out to be discussed, is the people are more creative and more innovative when they think in their heart language than they are if they think in a second language. Now, Dad's a PhD waiting to happen. But if that's correct, that's almost the downside of forcing them to speak and think in English. Now, I'll leave that hanging, but I thought, no, I'll see what happens when I start to translate it into heart language, or first languages. And so, as you know, there's English, Spanish, German, and of course the big breakthrough was Chinese.
Right.
Good grief. That exploded, and of course it subsequently meant a trip to China. But there's something that happens when Chinese, Norwegian speak, whatever language it is. I'm working on Russian right now. when and as you know, the last one was Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a challenge. But graphically, I meant.
Right.
Arabic, there's something about when a teacher thinks in Arabic, then they're working with an Arabic PD aid.
Yeah, you sent me in our email exchange something. I'm assuming it was Arabic, and I know you said it was. I think it was. Was it a translation of the Teach Thought?
Yeah.
The piece that we shared. That's fun.
Yes, I mean, I got to be honest with you, man. Teach Thought was the first. Still is the most succinct definition of what the Pedagogy Wheel is all about.
Nice.
I've received, and I use it extensively to help people understand what it is. And you guys nailed it. That was 2013, was it? That was a long go.
Yeah.
That original.
I'm looking at the piece here, and I don't know if it's got a date on it, but yeah, well,
it
good.
goes a long way, yeah. And so, yeah, I use that in my blog posts, and of course what Matt said. But sure, that's but that language thing is really, really important.
Yeah. So a couple questions before, because we need to get wrapped up here. But one of the questions, and I know you have a challenge that you'd like to pose to folks. But what, as far as a resource, I like to ask, what's a resource, a video, a book, a person, somebody who's a big thinker that you say, boy, people should really check this person out, this book out, this whatever. It will help them think differently in a way that you might recommend.
Well, that's as I said to you, a big question before. But Dan Pink's work, of course, is foundational. This whole idea of changing what motivates them, a
Right.
student, is radical thinking. I say things like, well, the carrot and the carrot and the stick is so last century, and it didn't work then. So why should we try to do it now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and so Dan's stuff on autonomy, mastery, purpose. The ISTE, I joined the ISTE just recently too, although I've been watching them a long time. And of course, the forum of teachers in that's amazing. I wrote an article which led to my connection with Claudine, who's in Lebanon, who translated it into Arabic. That was a result of ISTE. Mm-hmm. So networking, PLN is a huge thing. And Matt made a comment in his last email about podcast with you, where he said about promotion of the teacher promoting him or herself. Mm-hmm. That's an encouragement I say to all teachers. Think about yourself as an independent expert, and start to think about how you can position yourself as a thought leader. Now, as that'll do as far as the resources are concerned, although I'm interacting with people in all sorts of different cultures, so some of them may be not too relevant to your American audience, I guess, but how's that?
No, that's great. Some of those things, and I need to reach out to Dan Pink and get him on the podcast. I'd love to talk with him, because I agree.
Right, no, I've subscribed now, so I'll hear about that. I want to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah. I think his work, and I've used his videos. That RSA video that's animated of his TED Talk, I think is really helpful, and absolutely.
Okay, now I haven't joked with you about this. It's not a joke; it's true. But I'm going to say it publicly. I'm the only person in the world that has Dan Pink's RSA video with Chinese subtitles. We had to do it. When we were in China, of course, as you know, it's a parallel universe. They don't even use YouTube.
Right.
Okay, so we had to get a way for the teachers to see it, and then we had to get a way for the teachers to understand it. So we got into closed captioning, myself and the team in China, and we come up with Chinese subtitles. Now, I got to talk to somebody about the intellectual property of that, but I don't think who's going to argue when it's going to reach another 14.5 million teachers. Okay, having said all that,
yeah. So tell us about your challenge. You said you have a challenge for teachers. Tell us about that and what that is.
Well, the challenge is this, that according to my stats, there is 150,000 copies of my English Padagogy Wheel poster being downloaded in the last 18 months. Add now the fact it's been 3 years. I safely say there's thousands of copies of this poster out there, and now they're in 5 other languages as well. What my challenge is to teachers is I want to know how you're using it. I've called 2016 the year of application, and I need best practice. I had teachers passionately ask me in China, who's using this and how are they using it? How do I learn how to use this properly? Okay, and their hunger for best practice is enormous, and it's not a question validate the concept. It's not that research thing that's got to be done as well, but it's people using it. So I want teachers to contact me and tell me how they're using it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, there's an AR research project out there. They gave it, Drew, to 11 and 12-year-old kids, and the kids defined their learning activities, and they used iTunes U. And out of the 112 kids, 83-point-something% of them said they preferred that way to learn, and they learned more than the traditional way of learning science.
Right.
Now, that's significant research, but all I'm asking teachers to do is to contact me and say it works, or the strengths and the weaknesses of it. And I'm at the moment putting together a series of workshops, or at least one workshop, a 3-day type thing, but it can be done anyway, on how to dig down and make this thing work. And of course, it brings in so much good teaching and good resources, because the job of the wheel is just to promote or to help your thinking.
Yeah, and so thinking about how they can contact you and reach out and share, stories or pictures or all of the above, where can they reach you? What's your website, your Twitter, and all that good stuff?
Well, yeah, my blog, of course, is my anchor at the moment, and that can be reached at tinyurl.com/ALS, that's ALS, LT blog, one word, ALS LT blog. But please put the links in the notes.
Sure.
Appreciate it. My Twitter is at Allan, ALLANADL. Twitter is huge. It's huge in my life. And that way you can start. You can look up the word pedagogy. At one point, about 2 years ago, I had 5.5 million hits in Google. I'm not sure it's that high now, but you'll soon see that colourful wheel crop up very early in the list.
Right.
And just connect that way.
So tinyurl
tinyurl.com/ALSLTBLOG, ALS LT blog.
Right. Okay. I'll definitely put that in the show notes, and as well as your Twitter link and some of those other things that we've talked about. So, Alan, it's been fascinating and a real pleasure to talk with you. I'm excited for the future of this, how many languages we can get this pedagogy into, and the uses of it, the thinking behind it. And it's nice to see, because I don't know that people just looking at it necessarily get that process that you described, and so that's a really important piece.
Well, yeah, and I'm working in a blended, call it that, which will be both online and face to face, but and a fully online type way of digging down and helping teachers find out how to make this practical in their world.
Right. Well, thanks again, and maybe we'll connect to talk some of those other things that you mentioned in future podcasts, because it's been really fun.
I'd love to. I'd love to. And thank you, and thank Teach Thought, not only for the podcast, but also probably one of the definitive things in the growth of the Pedagogy Wheel is the way you defined it 2-3 years ago.
Well, happy
Thank
to
you.
help. Happy to help. All right. Well, take care.
Sure.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for listening. If you didn't hate it, please give us a quick review on iTunes. We record weekly and sometimes multiple episodes per week. Questions? Email us at podcast@teachthought.com or find us on the Teach Thought Twitter account @TeachThought.